So I feel like in some respects, this is the truer identity for me, right? Whereas the lawyer thing was like, well, I did pretty good in college. Like my parents are, would be really proud of me. So maybe law school, cool, I can do that, And there are aspects about being a lawyer. Like I really like the serving society aspect of that. But then I've also had to get on board with the fact that art serves society too.
Hello, and welcome to Artists Like Us, where we explore the creative journeys of those you might pass by every day, your neighbor, your coworker, your best friend. We're here to shine a light on the artists among us, the ones balancing their passions with the sometimes pleasant and often harsh realities of life. I'm your host, Janita Richards, and together we'll dive into the stories, struggles, and successes of the creative souls who may not be household names, but who make our world more vibrant. Let's discover the artistry that surrounds us with the artists like us. And today, our artist like us is Caroline Milby. Caroline is a mother of two, musician, and a lawyer based in Atlanta. She just released her first EP, which I found on Substack, listened to, loved, and then knew I had to reach out to her to talk about it. Caroline, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh my gosh, thank you. I'm so happy to be here. I think this is such an important message to get across, like how the creative spirit like lives in people that are not necessarily the ones that you like see as like the artist type.
Did it take you a while to see yourself as the artist type?
Yeah, I think I struggle. I mean, I still struggle with introducing myself to, especially it's like, I have kids, we go to like kids' birthday parties and it's like parents being like, oh, so what do you do? And obviously it's like, well, I could say I'm a lawyer or I could tell the truth and be like, I'm actually an artist. I'm a musician. And a lot of times it's easier just to say I'm a lawyer. And that's something I still struggle with because of I guess the perceived judgment that other parents might think, because it's just kind of unusual in the world that I live in to be also pursuing some kind of creative passion. But it shouldn't be. And that's the whole point. The whole point is it shouldn't be.
What do you find most difficult about saying that you're an artist, and why do you think that it doesn't match up to the world or the lifestyle that you're living right now with other parents?
So I live in Atlanta and my kids are in elementary school. I'm also an attorney and I live pretty much kind of like a kind of professional and also artist life. And I think that the most difficult thing is that if nobody has heard of you as an artist, there's this perception that it's because you're not any good or because you failed as an artist, right? So if I introduce myself as a musician and a singer and nobody's ever heard of me, then I feel like there's this immediate judgment of like, oh, well, there must not be very good. But if I introduce myself as a lawyer, even if you've never heard of me as a lawyer, like you're not going to think that I'm not any good at being a lawyer.
You have very physical credentials to back up your claim as I'm a lawyer, I'm an attorney. I assume you went to school, you passed the bar, you've worked in these positions for multiple things, and you've had other people validating you because they're hiring you and they need your work. Whereas as a musician, you don't have to go to school for it. You don't have to collaborate with people. You don't have to have like a bunch of cosigns, especially your EP is like a solo thing. So you're kind of existing in your own solo world of sorts.
Right, exactly. And I think that in the artist world traditionally, like with lawyers, for instance, like you have to pass the bar. There's like a little bit of a gatekeeping process, but with a lot of creativity and a lot of artist output, like we are getting rid of the gatekeeping process. Like I put out my album myself. I didn't have a record label executive who deemed it worthy and appropriate to put out. Like I put it out myself. And I think that without that gatekeeper cred, that gatekeeper clout, it's harder to introduce yourself to people who do not partake in any kind of creative endeavors and to come across as like somebody that will be belonging into the parents club here in the suburb that I live in.
Since the path to becoming a lawyer does have this gatekeeping and it is a bit more obviously structured, there are steps that you have to take. Did you find that more or less maybe freeing or speaking to your soul than being an artist is because you don't have that same gatekeeping, you don't have that same structure?
Well, I think I'm a good writer. I've always excelled in writing. Academics came pretty easily to me, and I definitely think that there's definitely some ego tied up in my decision to go to law school because I wanted the perceived success that comes with saying I'm a lawyer, right? Like, I can be honest about that. I think that definitely played into some of my decision.
And do you still feel that way, or what's making you want to call yourself an artist now?
I think that, you grow and you mature. And this is just something about my life that has always been there. And that I had always, like, I've been in bands, I've been in choirs, I've been on stage, I've been in musicals, and it's always been there. And it's always been on the side as more of a hobby, but it's like literally like a consistent in my life. There is no length of time in my life that I have not done some sort of performance art or been involved in some sort of performance art. And so I feel like in some respects, this is the truer identity for me, right? Whereas the lawyer thing was like, well, I did pretty good in college. Like my parents would be really proud of me. So maybe law school, cool, I can do that. And there are aspects about being a lawyer. Like I really like the serving society aspect of that. But then I've also had to get on board with the fact that art serves society too. I think I had internalized an idea that art is self-serving. Like I said, it's a hobby. It makes you feel good. If you're really, really good, then you can impact the world positively. But like, you're not really, this is my ego talking to me. You're not that good. It's more just for you. It's not going to help anybody else. I believe that a lot of what we see in our life is going to be mimicking of our own beliefs. So like trying to reapportion my beliefs to be on board with the fact that art is a service to society. And this is something that I've written about recently, actually. It's like I went jogging the other day and some of the flowers were starting to bloom here in Atlanta. And I don't look at those flowers and compare them to each other, right? But I'm glad that they are all there. And every single one of them, even if one of them is missing a petal, even if one of them is not technically as vibrant and beautiful as the other one, and even if it's a particular flower that I don't feel like particularly compelled or that I'm not that moved by. Like if it's a flower that I don't like as much, but every single one of them like adds more robustness. I don't know if that's the right word, but like every single one of them colors the world. Every single one of them adds a level of vibrancy and adds a level of life to the world. And it's just every single one of them is important, right? So I've started to kind of art is that way too, right? Your art is not going to connect with every single person, but every single piece of it adds more color and vibrancy to the world.
Absolutely. And then you were in the scene in Philly, and I imagine that there were tons of bands, tons of artists out there that I've never heard of, that most people never heard of, but probably did impact how you approach your art and like different ways that you appreciated that. And just because they're not huge, they still affect you. And you're going to make music that's then going to affect someone else, and then like so on and so on and so forth.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. It's like you can have local musicians in the scenes and it may not be somebody that the world has heard of, but he's the guy that plays his own songs in the bar on Friday nights and like the same people come to see him because he's good and they really connect with his music. And so there's so much to speak for just kind of the connection person to person that you can have by watching live music and being around artists too that doesn't have to be something that is on a worldwide or global scale.
I was at a one of my friends is in a band, and I was at a show of his last night, and they play pretty frequently. And I was just watching them and thinking like, what does it even mean to make it, quote unquote, right? Because here's this band, they're not huge, they're not household names, but they are consistently playing shows in New York City, which is the place where everyone wants to play a show, you know what I mean? But
Right.
that's still local to them. So what does it mean to make it? What does it mean to be a successful musician? So I'm curious about what your thoughts are for you
I think
personally.
I think it's a moving goalpost, right? So like that's why success has to be personal to you. Like I have my own definition of success that is personal to me because if I was caught up in the external validation markers of success, then you're never satisfied because there's always something more, right? You sell 1,000 albums where you're like, I got to sell 10,000. Then you sell 10,000 albums and then it's 100,000 and it's just like you're constantly striving and the goalpost is getting further and further away. So I think that having your own marker of success where feeling for me, it's like feeling proud of the stuff that I've done and feeling fulfilled by it and feeling like I want to show it to other people. Those are all markers that I am doing something that is good, that I feel good about and that is successful. And I also think that I have like a benchmark of a number of songs that I want to be able to put out because I've written so many songs and it can get, like it's expensive in the upfront cost to put out songs. So like there is a marker of amount of songs that I would like to have been able to put out, but that I think is would play into having just kind of like a nice catalog of what I consider like my artistic effort out there into the world. That's what I think. That's how I define success for me. And I try to take, and obviously there is an ego part of it that is looking for external validation that really craves it. But I try to take that part out of it because I know that it will never be, it is a thirst that will never be quenched.
How do you think that external validation that you're talking about in this sense and the same external validation and ego that made you want to pursue law, do you see how those share similarities and differ? Do they share similarities and differ to you?
I think they definitely share similarities. I think that being a lawyer is is a safer and more practical route to external validation. I think being an artist is a riskier route to external validation, and it's a lot of rejection. Certainly a lot more rejection that comes. There's rejection that comes with any field, no matter what you do, but there is typically a lot more rejection that comes with an artist. And I think that it's definitely related. Like I said, I've been working for the past 2 years on trying to really get a hold of what my ego wants and try to nurture that part of me, but also do not let that part of me control. And there's definitely the law ego and the art ego is definitely interrelated, but one of them is even like it's much harder and much braver to put art out there because of the rejection and because of the perceptions of artists than it is for being a lawyer. If anything, even though my ego is still intertwined with both of them, my ego has gotten braver just by virtue of the fact that I'm putting out this stuff that I had not had the courage to put out for so long.
What made you be brave? What brought you to the point where you did start to have that courage to put it out?
I think there's something that I believe really strongly, which is that you regret the things that you don't do much more than you regret the things you do. And I think it started to be like now or never. I've got two small kids. I'm 41 as we're recording this, and I just I think I was just like, well, if I'm going to do it, I mean, I'm either not going to do it or I'm going to do it, or I'm going to do it in 10 years and wish I had started now. So why don't I do it now? Because eventually this has got to happen because I feel like so compelled to do this.
When did you start this journey? Was it after having kids or before having kids?
So my musical journey. So when I relocated from Philadelphia to Atlanta in 2019, and while I was in Philadelphia, and this is not by me seeking it out, these are just people that I knew and connections I made. I ended up being in a whole bunch of bands. Like I swim downstream, and people asked me to be in bands, knowing that I played the piano and could sing, and I was just like, yeah. And so I had never actually sought out being in a band. It was just something that kept kind of appearing. I was in cover bands and original bands. But when we moved to Atlanta for my husband's job, which was the right decision for our family, but I didn't have any musical connections here. And that creative part of my life that I had always like really cherished, even when like practicing law and everything like that had been kind of extinguished. And then the pandemic happened. And obviously we had no connections and no artistic outlet. And we're kind of like, surviving for 3 years. And I got to where I need to do something creative. If I'm not doing something creative, it's like a part of my soul dies. So I was like, well, I guess I'm just going to have to do this myself. Like, I don't know anybody here. I've not really had the chance to socialize. But what's great about doing it is like when you put yourself out there as an artist, like you meet so many people. And I feel like I'm really connected to a lot of the scenes here now. I know a lot of the people that are like the movers and shakers, and there's so many talented people, and I feel like very privileged to know them and very privileged to be included in some of their, activities and everything like that. But yeah, I basically started putting out music by myself because I didn't have a band anymore and I didn't know anybody to be in a band with me.
How has that experience been different being in a band and doing your own solo stuff?
I think my vulnerability is a lot higher because when I was in the band, it was an original band, but I wasn't the principal songwriter, and I wasn't even the principal singer. I basically sang some solo stuff, but mostly backing, and it was other people's ideas and concepts that, if anything, I might add to. But it's not like my vulnerability is on the line here because this is my creative baby that I have birthed into the world, right? It's somebody else's. So it made it kind of easier and funner. Doing it myself is really, it feels really good. It feels like finally I'm, at the point where I feel like I can do this. But it's also much more vulnerable because it is my creative brainchild, basically.
Do you like it more?
I do because I really like singing.
Hmm.
And I really like being kind of, yes, I do. I find it more fulfilling because it's something that I have done and I have brought into the world entirely myself. And I want to play with other people, but I like the idea of having people that can play my music with me too. And that's something that I'd like to explore in the next couple of years. There's some musicians around here that I have had guest on some of my stuff and play on some of my recordings. And yes, so to answer your question, yes, I do find it was more relaxed and kind of like casual fun when I was doing it when it was somebody else's music, but if it's my music, it feels a lot more fulfilling and it feels a lot more like, yes, this is what you're supposed to be doing.
Speaking of like something that you're bringing into the world yourself, and of course you had a partnership in this, but bringing your kids into the world. So a couple weeks ago, I had a conversation with a philosopher friend, and we are talking about what is creativity and like what is a creative act. And one of the things that we talked about is like is having children a creative act, like you're doing kind of the ultimate creation. And honestly, we don't get to talk to a lot of parents on this pod. You're one of the first, but since we kind of brought it up, talk to if you feel that like creating life and bringing up life and now leading songs and bringing that to the world and like nurturing that. Do you feel that they share any bonds?
Yes, because you want them both to be liked and accepted in the world, right? So like I feel the same way. I have, especially with like my kids' teachers, where like I try to not, I don't want to be a headache for them. I don't want to be overly demanding to them because I want them to have good energy around my kids and I want my kids to be liked and accepted in the world. And there's definitely something similar with the song Baby, right? If it's not liked or it doesn't get the reception that you wanted it to, like you feel really hurt by that. And like if it's your kid, it's like it's also the same thing. Like there's some like, where you want your kid to be loved as much as you love it. So I think that that's definitely an overlap too.
And similarly to that, when you create a piece of art and it goes out into the world, you have no more control over how people perceive it and not even whether they like it or they don't like it, but what that interpretation is. Like you might have written that song about a really sad moment in my life, and other people might take it and find so much joy in it and feel like, oh, well, this means something totally different to me. And similar with raising adults or raising humans to exist in the world, you can and you should and you will instill all these values in them, but it's going to be how they experience the world and how they take it through and will be how they then take the values that you have given them, and it'll just shape their lives in different ways that you haven't expected, but you still have to accept that.
Yes, and I'm actually like I believe very, very strongly in letting my kids turn into the people that they want to be and are supposed to be in the world, right? So yes, I instill all the values and the morals and like, please and thank you and stuff like that. But like I don't want to like I'm artistic, my husband's kind of artistic, he's a musician too, and we don't want to push that on our kids. Like we don't want to push our way of being on our kids. We want them to like be able to go and out into the world with curiosity and develop the gifts that they want. And it's the same kind of thing with the songs, right? Like I want somebody else to connect with the songs, sure, but I want them to take whatever meaning really resonates with them and however that flower blooms to them. I use the flower metaphor a lot, obviously. However that flower blooms to them and looks to them, that's great. That's perfect, right? So like how it looks to me and how it smells to me is it means something to me. But I think that's what's special about art is that you can take there's so many different ways to interpret meaning from it, and everybody has their own. You can look at the same thing, you can hear the same thing and take two different things away from it. And like with children, they they are going to they're going to do what they have. It's almost like it has its own consciousness, right? Once you put it out into the world, your child obviously does, your art does, and you need to just it's your job to be a good parent to it and put it and make it safe and safely release it and then let it go and fly away and be what it's meant to be and what it wants to be and is supposed to be.
How do you think that having kids has impacted your art, but also how do you think being an artist has impacted how you approach children, and whether that's having always been an artist or just really embracing yourself being an artist in like the more recent years?
So I think to the second question, one of the ways that I was raised, and this goes to my kind of my path of playing it safe and going practical for such a long time is I was kind of raised in an environment where art was it was good, it was fine, it was a hobby, but it was never something you were supposed to try to pursue because it was not like you would not be able to like the starving artist was like a reality and like that was a concept that I felt like I internalized in the family that I grew up in. They are practical people that have been working hard in stable jobs and choose stable paths and do not take the artistic risky path. And so I feel like because I internalized so much of that and because it prevented me from really going and doing what I really wanted in my core to do for so long, that I don't want my kids to take away that belief that it is not okay to be an artist and is not okay, you know? So, or that if you wanted to be an artist, you better make it better be a side hustle and that's it. So that's one of the ways that I think that I have taken my journey and, tried to give my kids kind of a better experience with with art. And if they want to pursue, I want them to pursue whatever they want to pursue. And I don't want to give them preconceived notions of like what's right and what's wrong and what's okay and what's not okay. Okay, repeat the first question again.
The first question was how has having kids impacted you as an artist?
Yes. Okay. So much, right? So I was one of those people who grew up, and it wasn't like I always knew that I was going to be a mother or that I wanted to be a mother. I was more just like, well, if I meet someone that I feel like is going to be a good partner to me and it happens, then it's because it's meant to happen. But I think that there is a level of emotional depth that I have now as a mother that I didn't really have before just because of kind of the I was kind of closed off. I was kind of I put a lot of walls up and didn't have a lot like it's like my heart opened up, I guess, after having kids, and that sounds really cheesy, but it's really true.
It's sweet.
But it's not that you don't have to have the kids to have that experience. I feel like I just had come from a place where I had put a lot of walls up and had a lot of like had a big shell around myself, and I feel like the kids have and I and the kids having kids has kind of cracked it a little bit and let more kind of love from my own depth of love has increased, which gives me a lot more to write about and gives me a lot more kind of breadth of human emotion to kind of channel. So,
You get to kind of expand and touch all the walls that are around you like a little bit more and you
yes.
get to see things through their eyes and no, that's really beautiful. I don't think it's cheesy. I think it's very sweet and I think probably a lot of people share that same sentiment.
Well, so part of my walls is feeling like it's cheesy to say it, right? So like
Mm.
that was me just showing that I still have work to do in that respect.
No, for sure. And I do feel like when you add that caveat, right, it kind of gives you free reign. You're like, okay, well now I'm allowed to say anything because I already just admitted that it might be kind of corny.
Right. Right, exactly.
I would love to talk more about your album. Can you tell me just a little bit more about like why you wanted to write it, the themes that you're exploring in it?
Yeah, so I wrote this album. I wrote this album basically like every song I write starts at the piano, and then I have a producer that I work with. His name is Luke Mertz, and he was actually from New York and then lived in LA for a while. And then this is so funny, and this is just speaks to how the universe works. That when I started writing my own songs, like this guy moved in next door to one of my family members whose house that I'm out at a lot, and like he was like, "Oh, you write music? Cool. I'm a producer. Hey, let me hear some of your stuff. Cool. Let's work together." And it's just like how that kind
Amazing.
of stuff happens once you start going in the direction that you're afraid to go in, like opportunities will come to you. And anyway, I'm a big fan of like 80s new wave and synth stuff. And I'm a big fan of like 90s piano chick. I call them 90s piano chicks, but I'm talking like Tori Amos and Fiona Apple and like
Mhm.
Sarah McLachlan and kind of Lilith Fair icons. And so I kind of wanted to combine those two influences. And so I wrote every song at the piano, and then we added, with Luke, we added some like a more kind of pop instrumentation and some synth elements and stuff like that to it. And yeah, it's got some bangers on it, if I do say so myself. The theme that I write the most about is what I'm talking about today, which is kind of like creative flowering, flourishing, empowerment, creative empowerment. Like creative fear was a big deterrent in my life, like me living my life fully for a really long time. So overcoming that has been a big theme in the songs that I write about.
I agree that it does have some bangers. I mean, that's why I reached out. And I told you this before as well. Like when I saw your note on Substack and you said, I'm 41, I just released my first album. And I remember crossing my fingers, being like, oh my God, please be pop. Please don't be acoustic guitar, which is
Right. Folky singer-songwriter. And yeah, that
yeah,
stuff is good, but like, yeah.
there's nothing wrong with it. But, and I said this to you, it's like, it just feels like women are forced to age out of pop once you become 30, then you have to be a quote unquote serious writer and you can't have fun or whatever anymore. And so I was so happy when I listened to it, and it was fun, pop, synth. I was like, "This is incredible. I have to talk to her."
Thank you so much. Yeah, and that's such a good point too, that, like, when you think of somebody like a musician in their 40s, you kind of imagine just like to me, the first image that comes to my hand is like and there's nothing wrong with this, is like a folky singer-songwriter with a guitar, singing like folk songs, and, that's just not where I think that that music is beautiful and adds a lot, but that is not my particular, like, wheelhouse of what I enjoy the most. So I didn't want to limit myself by saying, oh, well, I'm 40, so I should have to stay in this camp and I can't. Everybody should do whatever the hell they want whenever the hell they want.
Yes, everybody should do whatever they want whenever the hell they want. I absolutely agree with
Yeah.
that. Did you know that you wanted to make pop music, or did it kind of come once you were with the producer and exploring all these different avenues?
I knew that I wanted to have some good percussion in there, and I knew that I wanted to have some cool synthy, like airy, floaty synthy stuff. Uh, Like, yes. So to answer your question, yes, I knew that I wanted to make pop music. I like it's like some of the stuff that I do now too is has some of those elements, but also can veer a little bit even more like kind of cabaret or chamber pop kind of stuff. And yes, so I knew that I did not just want to be, I knew that I didn't just want to be an acoustic. There's just, I love the different elements of a song. And I love that you can have a song with good bones, but then you can add something to it, like whether it's a different chord progression or whether it's an accent synth line that can just take it to a whole nother level. And part of the things that I love musically is getting into that stuff and figuring out, like, if we add a syncopated, like, industrial percussion element here, like, would that could take this song to a whole new level, so I love that stuff. That's part of my true joy in making music. So I did not want to limit myself by excluding that just because of my age.
No, absolutely, and all the better for it. I really do. I really genuinely enjoy it.
Thank
Um,
you.
Earlier in the conversation, you talked about how like expensive it is to put out music. I want to touch on that a little bit because I think that money is a crazy thing for everyone. It's like
Yeah.
honestly something that gives me hives. Like, so you have a family, you have 2 kids, you have a husband, you have a house, you have a life. When you decided you wanna put out music, how did you decide that you were going to, like, approach the budget?
You know what's so interesting is that this is not something like in my 20s, like I would not have been able to pay $500 to have someone like, produce and add, and play on my song and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So I think part of the musical journey is like I'm in just by virtue of my age, by virtue of like the jobs that I've worked in, by virtue of being in a dual income family right now with my kids in public school, like, because daycare is so expensive. Like there were several years like
Mm.
with daycare and pre-K, like because we did not get into not that this is important, but we did not get into the public pre-K here. We had to go to private pre-K because it's a lottery system, and that is just so childcare is so expensive. But once I get into public school, it kind of feels like a windfall. And so I think that a lot of my musical journey, it's been really good doing it later in life because I just have more resources than I've ever had.
Yeah, more resources, and then you also just feel more confident. It does sound like this is just coming at, like, a the timing is always right, right? Like, it's not
Right.
up to you.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like there's always going to be people that tell me I should have started doing this in my 20s. I should have, I'm too old, too late, whatever. But I mean, like, I have more resources to put towards it and make it good now than I did 20 years ago. So
And you said that your husband is a bit of a musician as well?
yeah, so we actually met because we have both been in bands. He was not in a band at the time, but he had been in a band, and he's a physician and I'm a lawyer. So like we're both like
You're
educated,
a
like
perfect couple.
academic, like, but he also is like a really good guitar player. He was a bassist and he was in jazz band and orchestra and stuff like that, and then had been in a bunch of bands and had done his own production work stuff. Like he had put out some of his own music too that he had produced back in like the early 2000s. So we just really had that in common, and I think that that really kind of drew us together too.
You guys are both, like, super professionals by day and then crazy artists by night.
Yeah, for sure. Like it's cool. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, exactly. There's no bad timing. So had I done it 20 years ago, it's nice to have him too because he listens to my stuff before anybody else. And it's like, oh, you know what? That's got too many words. Maybe you want to take out some of the words. Like sometimes I listen to him and sometimes I don't. If it depends on how I feel, but I always appreciate his input.
Mhm. Do you do you ever feel like a little bit of competition because you both enjoy like to produce the same kind of art?
No, if anything, I feel guilt that he is not getting to do it at the level that I am doing it at right now. So I had stepped back from practicing law full time when the kids like needed, one of the things with being a lawyer and a doctor is we don't have a nanny, and it's somebody's got to pick up the kids from school. If somebody gets sick, somebody's got to. So I basically was the default parent, and then working in an office in court. I was working for a judge, and I love her, but the court system and playing basically like by her schedule and having to be at the mercy of her schedule was really hard, with also being at the mercy of my kids' schedules and my husband's schedule. So I stepped back from like full-time practice, but because of that, I have a little bit more flexibility, and I'm not working in an office, so I can kind of like go down to our basement and like lay down some tracks or whatever, or record some songs. And I feel, if anything, I feel guilty that he is not getting to do that right now. And I keep telling him like, I'll go back to full time, like why don't you should take a sabbatical too.
It's good that you're giving him that option, though. I'm sure that when he's ready, he will take you up on it,
I know, I
and
hope he
when the timing is
does,
right.
because he's got great ideas, and he's got some really good stuff. I mean, what's interesting is his style of music is different from mine. So I like pop, I like 80s, I like 90s. He's really more into metal, like Metallica was like
Of
one of his
course.
favorite bands, and he really loves like a lot of hard prog math metal, like just like where the time signature changes everywhere. Like he's really jazzed up by stuff like that, and I am less jazzed by stuff like that. But I am certainly excited for him to have an opportunity to do this too.
Have you ever dated a non-artist and felt like you did not like the connection, like something was missing because you would now that you have like an artist in your house and it's just a totally different experience?
No, I mean, I have dated some artists that do not have a lot of executive functioning skills, and that was more of an issue than the actual
What do you mean by
artist.
executive functioning skills?
Just like good communication skills, emotional intelligence,
Okay.
the ability to, like, if you say, like, to take out the trash, just stuff like that.
Yeah.
And like, I'm very fortunate to have a partner that is extremely emotionally intelligent, like a good communicator, and this is why I chose to have kids, right? Because like I had said, I was like, I'm not having kids unless I find someone that is a good partner. But yeah, I think that because he is kind of more grounded in like a practical profession right now, it's not competitive, and it doesn't get like, I feel like so far it's working, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like one of the problems that I've had, like, just is, so there's only, as the person who writes and sings the songs, right? And I write, produce, and sing the songs. I have help with Luke, who produces too. But like, somebody's got to mix it, somebody's got to master it, right? So it's like, or you need to get a studio from someone for the day so you can record something. But like, getting those people to email you back timely in a way that is like respectful of your time is so hard. Like, there are so many good, really talented, artistic people that just do not know how to email you back and set up a specific time, and cannot give you a due by date. They cannot give you an estimated time of arrival. Like, just that kind of stuff. Like, yes, I have been burned with stuff like that before. And that's another thing that goes into like executive functioning skills.
Yeah, it's hard. It's like how much leeway do you give to that, right? Because you're thinking as well, I'm an artist and I also can do all these things. They don't have to exist so separately, but for some artist brains, you really do fall short on that. In the play that I'm producing now, I have a stage manager and I always brag about her because she's so incredible and like just really helps me to get all my ducks in a row. And it's really made me see just like the value of having an extra person. And I still do, she doesn't do every single thing. I still do a lot of logistics, but it'd be nice if in the next production I could do even less logistics. But it really made me see the value in like having someone else who can just think with like a different part of their brain while I focus on more of the artistic stuff.
Right. Yeah, for sure. And that's the problem with being an indie artist, is you kind of have to have two sides of your brain on at the same time, right? Because like, you're not going to want to rent a studio for X amount of money and then oversleep and not show up, or forget that you booked that time, right? So it's like, you have to, like, there's no personal assistant to like come pick you up in a car and make sure you get to where you're supposed to be. You have to kind of simultaneously function the right and left brains. So
For real, and you just have to be hustling too, because
and that too, you have to be in your own marketing department, your own graphic design. Like I have a good friend who is a graphic designer that's done a lot of some of my graphic work. And I have some friends who have some nice cameras and some good videography skills. But a lot of the editing of it, a lot of I'm sure like with you, with the podcast, you know, edit it and market it and all of that. So yeah.
how do you find the marketing stuff of it? Because I mean, I found you on Substack, so
Right.
you're doing something good.
Yeah, so I mean, like social media is I don't want to overstate the importance of social media because I think a lot of people do. I think social media is and I include Substack in that especially because of the notes function that it has that is kind of mimics kind of a social media feed. It's a really good way to introduce yourself to people that otherwise wouldn't see you, but it's not as a musician, it's not necessarily the best way to and I'm very lucky to have found you, Janita, but it's not necessarily the best way to introduce yourself to music fans and to people that like the kind of music that you're necessarily doing. So I find the best marketing is just playing shows, like playing live and like then you talk to the people, you can connect with them live because they're there in front of you and like you can meet them afterwards and I feel like that is the best marketing. It's not sometimes it's not as easy as just posting like I just wrote the song of the summer, like reel, or not that I would ever say that on a reel that I made, but like something like that, it can be easier and go faster. But and you might get like, 10, 20 likes, but it's not a lot of return. Like it's just it doesn't the returns are not like you don't see the returns like based on fans or engagement or certainly not like monetary. Like basically you want fans that are really into music and like to go to live shows and like to support artists and social media is mostly just people looking for dopamine.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that we're both lucky though in the fact that you live in Atlanta, I live in New York, very alive cities,
Yes.
like very, very alive cities. And so you do have the opportunity to go out and play shows and interact with lots of people. I No, I was gonna say, but I do feel for other people in other places. When I was growing up in Connecticut, also, which is it's not, the middle of nowhere or anything, but we had such a vibrant local scene growing up. Like all my friends were in bands when I was a kid. My teen life was just going to shows, like always going to hardcore shows, always going to punk shows. And I didn't realize though how unique that was until, you kind of course, you grow up, you branch out, you meet other people, and they're talking about what they were doing in high school. And I'm like, no, I wasn't listening to that. I wasn't doing that. But I think it's just because I was out at shows all the time. My favorite bands were my friends' bands.
Yeah.
I missed the One Direction thing, not because I'm anti it. Like I like a lot of One Direction songs still, but I was just busy being in the pit.
Right. Yeah, you were doing yeah. So but I also think that like your interests are going to be different than someone who is like, diehard One Direction fan. Like and I feel like for me, because I grew up in Mount Laurel, New Jersey, but all of my but because I was in choir and because I did plays and did music and stuff then, like a lot of my friends did that too. And so I would go see a lot of my friends' shows too. And then even when I went to University of Alabama for undergrad and like Tuscaloosa, like there were so many bands that I like went to go see. But it's just like it finds the people that were meant to find it and then there are other people that are just that's just not what lights them up. I think I do think that Atlanta and New York are particularly vibrant cities for music, but I think that some of the rural towns too, like there are they have their hometown hero stars that we'll never ever hear of but like can pack a bar on a Friday night because the people that like music there like will go and see them, so I think that yeah, I think it just music finds the people that it needs to, and the kind of music that finds you is the kind of music that's meant to find you.
No, absolutely. I totally agree with that. And there's something to be said that because we live in Brooklyn or New York and Atlanta, there are people from those rural towns coming to those specific cities to do their music dreams, right? So ideally we're still getting all these different flavors of small towns that we wouldn't have seen otherwise. And those people are getting influenced by the local legend who is going to stay local because that's where his roots are, or that's where her roots are, and that's where they want to stay, and that's where they feel totally comfortable. But they're going to inspire the person who does want to go far.
Yeah, like everything is it's so interesting, like everything is a ripple, like everything ripples. So like you don't see how anything impacts, what you don't see how what you're doing impacts other people, but it does. And you may never see the fruits of that, but it does, and it's a ripple effect. So
Yeah, no, I'm super, super big. We talked about if you're a little witchy, and I am definitely a little witchy, a little woo woo.
yeah.
And I believe so much in the butterfly effect. I was talking to someone about this the other day because he actually said the same exact thing that I always say. And I always say, if I smile at the mailman, and this guy said, if I smile at the mailman, and I was like, all right, we're right here. If I smile at the mailman might smile at someone else, and who knows, maybe we cure cancer, you know?
Exactly. I mean, I've totally one of the things that I've always said is that every interaction that you have with another person is a chance to make their day better or worse. And when you make their day better, they will make someone else's day better, who will then make someone else's day better. And it's just like you're just smiling at the mailman can have like a huge effect, right? So everything that you do. So I try to always remember that, especially if you get like frustrated when you're waiting in line for a really long time, like this is still an opportunity you have to make the world a better place just by having positive and compassionate and loving interactions with those around you.
I feel like it's my duty to always smile and say hello at people and just be kind because what else are you doing?
Right, exactly. Like there's so much that's unseen, right? Like the energy that you carry with you is like so permeable and so, or not permeable, but permeating.
Mm.
And you don't see it. And if you're not really tapped in, you might not feel it, but it's there and it affects people.
No, absolutely. Energy is so, so, so strong. And I'm really glad that you've shared your energy with us for this entire time. I'm really happy to have met you.
Thank you. I'm really happy to have met you too. And this play, like I'm so excited for you and the play that you're doing because I was reading about it and it sounds really really cool. Like it sounds like a cool like the immersive aspect of it is really really neat.
I'll send you the script if you want to read it.
Oh, I would love
It's
to.
totally.
Yes.
And then if you could please tell everyone where they can find your music, where they can find your work, and what you're up to next.
Yes, absolutely. So my name is Caroline Milby. I should have mentioned this earlier, but I actually write and release music as Caroline in the Garden. And the garden is kind of a metaphor for my kind of sacred creative space, but it also is just
That's
like
all the flower metaphors.
I love nature so much, like if Caroline in the Garden is like, if I could write anywhere and I do, I write outside, right? So Caroline in the Garden is what I release music under. And I'm basically everywhere. I'm on Spotify, Bandcamp, Instagram, TikTok, sometimes. But like
Sometimes.
mostly like Spotify, Bandcamp, anywhere you stream, Apple, it's all there. And my website is carolineinthegarden.com. And if you sign up for my mailing list, you get a free download of a cover that I did of Violet by Hole, which is a band and a song
It's so good.
that I love. So
I love
thank you.
Hole and I love that cover. It's so
Thank you
good.
so much. Yeah. So you can get you can get it for free, download it for free, carolineinthegarden.com.
Yay, thank you so much. And I will, of course, link all those into wherever Substack and wherever it will also be Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube. Thank you so, so much. We really appreciate you being on Artists Like Us.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here.
And I never know how to end this stuff, but bye, listeners.
Bye.
Thanks for sitting down with Artists Like Us. I'm Janita Richards, and I want you to be inspired by the life that's lived by you, because of you, and all around you. Do you know the perfect guest for us? Drop me a line at janita@cabbagehouse.xyz and let's chat. If you're feeling up to it, leave us a review and share with your friends. It means a lot. Stay sweet, sexy, silly, and inspired. I'll see you here next time with another great guest just as interesting as the last.